Today's date is the 21st of January. Got the United States Coast Guard down here to do an inspection. Just want to show you an old anchor, early 1700s replica that Captain Randy Rathfield found. This is the Gulf Ranger, Captain Harold Rathfield. Got the Coast Guard going to give us an inspection.
Where you started, show him your pamphlet and stuff too.
Started with the documentation.
Here with Captain Harold Rathfield, 21st of January for the motor vessel Gulf Ranger.
And what we started with here is what we're doing is a commercial fishing vessel courtesy examination. And what we started with is just go over the documentation, make sure all the documentation's in order. And we got this checkoff sheet right here. What it does is it just lists all the documentation and the operator and the owner's name and address. This is where we put any discrepancies that we find or whatever, and then we have our checkoff list that we go by, and it lists everything that needs to be on the boat, and also gives a yes or a no or a not applicable for each thing. What they're doing right now is they're looking at the life jackets, and then they'll let me know what it is. And like I said, this is completely a courtesy examination. It's at your discretion, you know, if you want the Coast Guard to come out and do it. There's no pressure or anything from it.
Gene, am I going to be in the way? How old is the boat? How old is it?
We added they used to just 4 bunks before we raised.
What we're looking for basically is just good overall construction of the jackets. You want to have your retro reflective tape, which is on the shoulders and the back. Have good straps, not not any shabby, no holes or anything that expose. You want to have the vessel's name, the person's name, or any other type of name on the life jacket. See it's got the vessel name right there.
Yeah.
You want to check. You have to have a light. This one's a personal marker light, which is you want to check the expiration date, which you see is they have right there. And another good thing you want to do, like if you might want to stick tape around that so it doesn't wear off. But that's one of the main things we always check. And like this, I say, is that's a good life jacket. So
Thank you very much.
Right. 60 feet of line, floating line.
Life ring has to have 60 feet of line to be legal, is that correct?
What about the diameter of the line? Is there a
65 foot, a spec on line?
There's no spec for the diameter, it just has to be a floating line, and for this size vessel, 60 feet.
And this is on the toss ring, the life ring.
That's correct.
Does the name of the vessel need to be on the life ring also?
The name of the vessel must be on it, and you can see he's got his
home
retro.
port.
You need to have 4 sections of the reflective tape, either a ring all the way around, or 4 squares on both sides.
Okay.
Well, so far we've covered the permits and licenses, the life jackets and throw rings so far on the Gulf Ranger.
You've got the chemical kind, which is
Chemical
broke.
kind, we just bought all them new and put them on there. We tried the lights with the batteries and we had no success with those.
That's right. The only thing to be leery of with the chemical ones is they do have an expiration date. Just like the battery ones, if they don't, we'll recommend that you put a date that the battery went in
I
and they have
think
to
we
be
good for
changed
2
yearly.
years. I like that date on them, then I look at that bucket.
Well, on some of the chemical lights, there'll be a piece of white paper on the light itself that'll have the date on it, and what you can do is just take a piece of Scotch tape and put over it so that writing won't come off the paper. You know, if it gets wet or whatever, and the paper won't come off the light.
Yeah, I noticed that was on them yet.
Okay, the next thing we need to take a look at is your distress signals, your flares.
Okay.
Flare kit. For him also, all of his life jackets, they're, it states they have to be readily accessible, and they're all in an accessible place there. But we always recommend that you have one in the operating stations, the pilot house.
Let me set that up there. We
Go ahead.
a lot nicer.
Go ahead.
I never had it done. I don't see a this all brand new.
All right.
This is all brand new.
Clearly marking the outside of it. You tell me what we gotta have, and I'll look at them.
30 to 50 miles needs 3 parachutes, 6 handheld, and 3 smokes for this.
3 parachutes, expiration date 10/96.
Start approval number. You want to explain to them what you're looking for in a
Yeah.
flare?
Yeah, when you say parachute, I think we're not talking about the same thing. We're talking about the flare type. Is that correct?
Parachute flare.
I want to verify
Okay.
that on the fence.
Yeah, right here on his pair of red, it's a red parachute flare. It actually goes up into the air and then ignites and burns on the way down. All right, and then on here you look for either a Coast Guard inspection or approval number, or with some of them they have the SOLAS number. This one conforms to SOLAS 83 amendments.
Expiration.
The U.S. Coast Guard approval number is right there right there.
Okay.
It actually goes by the CFR regs, the federal regulations. It actually goes by that, right with the number, and that'll give you the
That works all U.S. Coast Guard
right,
approved.
U.S. Coast Guard
through
approved.
y'all's agency.
Right. And then also you want to look at the expiration date. Always make sure you got the required amount that haven't expired. If you've got some that have expired, it's always good to keep them on hand. They might work.
So,
In
boat
case you
captain,
need 'em.
if he had a running log of inventory of everything to be in Coast Guard specs, it'd be important that on his due dates coming up, that he knows to mark them off and show a daily log or something,
Right.
or monthly log of up-to-date stuff.
Well, that would be a good idea. That would be a real good idea. Just the biggest thing, just to keep in mind those expiration dates. You know, if you keep it written down somewhere, that's fine. If you just keep a check on the flares or whatever to see what they say on them. On here, you got the same thing. This expires in December of '96, and you got the U.S. Coast Guard approval number right here.
Okay.
All right, and these are your orange smoke distress signals. There's 3 of them. There's 3 parachute flares. And then these have the same stuff. These are handheld red distress signals. Their September '96 expiration date, and Coast Guard approval number is right there. And you've got 9 of them. 6 of them.
Instructions on using this type of equipment are wrapped up in there with instructions on how to shoot them off and that type of stuff, to where you're not burning somebody up or around explosive materials. Is that
Should
right?
tell you right on the side of the flares. It should be written right on there. But it's a good idea to go ahead and look at them for the crew, and for especially you get new crew members, whatever, you know. You have them go ahead and look at them so they're familiar with it, because it may be dark, they may not be able to see nothing.
This will come up later in the inspection also.
It may be in the water or something like
Now
that.
you're required to hold training, hold drills and stuff for your crewmen, so to make sure they know where their stations are and how to operate the safety equipment.
I believe that was in that manual there.
We'll get to it here in a little bit.
Where items are at.
Also, do you have an EPIRB on board?
EPIRB, yes, sir. I want to ask some questions about that EPIRB too.
Okay.
That EPIRB's getting everybody's
The
attention.
new chief.
This is string or rope on it.
Yes, sir.
But say you sink, and that EPIRB doesn't have to be fastened to your vessel somewhere, but if you're out there so deep,
It needs to be either so it'll float free, or they have them also with a hydrostatic release, which is the
I think
vessel
ours
sinks.
has a hydrostatic release, but what I'm wondering, does that string have to be attached to the vessel? It's got about 50 foot of string on them.
If it is, it'll be with a weak link.
Okay.
In other words, if you sink in shallow water, then
Oh, okay, that's probably the reason why it's so small. It's gonna break. That was
Yes,
the
sir.
question. Okay.
hey, that's up top side.
Yeah, on the front side. You can just walk around with them.
That's a pretty big thing. Okay, this is the disposable type hydrostatic release. When you buy these, when you put it on your boat, there's little tabs here which has the month, and over here is the year. That should be when it's installed. All right, or actually when it expires. Right now, this one hasn't. Nothing's been torn off of here, so it shows no expiration date, which, when you're being boarded at sea, means it's expired.
Okay, do we need to tear something off of that one?
Yes, sir.
I kind of.
Do you have any of your paperwork when you said these are all brand new?
Oh, Eugene's got it all. Sheldon, come here, man. I want you to listen to this gentleman, because we got to go to every one of these E-Perbs. He's going to show us a thing here where we got to tear off, and the captains needs to know, but still, right now, I'd like USCG today is out there all done the same way.
Normally the dealer does that when you buy them.
Yeah.
When we're going to check them, that's what we're going to check for, is the expiration date on here.
Okay.
So what I was just showing him is the year or month, nothing's been removed, just like on your car battery, which shows when it expires. So it's not acceptable like that.
Okay.
We'll go with his paperwork and take a look at, it's probably got the expiration date on that, and we can do it.
Sometime along in July, August.
All of yours are these disposable kind?
Every one of them should be that same type.
All but Ricky.
All but Ricky, the big boat, the Fisherman Pride. He's got
Okay.
a different.
Good. Is what you're asking me about the
That's
floating
right.
free?
That's what I was curious about.
Yeah, well, what'll happen is your hydrostatic release will release it, and the lines is going to be floating there in the water.
Okay, up here's another thing that we check on these. You've got another battery stamp. This is for the battery inside of your E-Perb. This thing's brand new, and the battery on here has to be replaced in December of '96. So, 2-year battery, or basically 3-year battery in here. Did you get any instruction on how to test these or anything?
Well, we did. They sent us a little brochure, and I read it some.
It's the handbook, I've seen.
Yeah.
You say the E-Perbs and the metal canisters need to be checked every 2 years or every year?
Not the E-Perbs, but the actual hydrostatic release.
On the metal canisters every year?
Let me look that up. I believe it's every 2 years.
Every 2 years.
Let me go back to my schedule.
Yeah, it should tell you here how to go about testing.
Okay, and you're required to test these once a month. I'll show you how to test it. I was asking if you had any paperwork on it.
Okay.
I've never seen this exact model. It's push for test.
Huh?
The light.
So you should hold it upside down. Just hold that button in. When you flip it up, it should turn itself on automatically.
Okay.
You got it set in the auto right now with a pin and a lead wire. That's real good.
Right.
Just once a month, get somebody up here, and you're not required by law to keep a log or anything. You're required to test it. So that's what you're going to be asked. If you do test it, I would recommend for your own safety to ensure that it's done, that you do keep some kind of log.
It goes over.
How do you receive the alarm on the E-Perb once it's set off? It's silent. How do you track it?
Well, there's several different ways. First of all, commercial and military aircraft, they can receive them if they're flying over in the area. There's also listening stations. If you're close enough to shore, they can pick it up. And then there's satellites, which are operated by the military, which they'll pick them up. They'll send the information to the Air Force Rescue Coordination Center at Scott Air Force Base up in Illinois, and they get it to the appropriate Coast Guard unit. And it'll give us a position, exactly where the signal's coming from. Then we send aircraft out or a vessel and check it out. Another important thing, did you fill out your registration card for this?
We fill all that out and send it back. Got the information in the phone there.
Okay, that's something very important. When the fishermen buy these, if they'll fill out that information card and send it in, not only will we receive a signal, but it will identify the specific vessel. And then we'll know exactly what we're looking for. We'll know how many people are on board. We can call the owners or the processing plant or whatever.
So every signal on the E-Perb is different?
Well, that's correct. It will transmit individual information for a specific vessel.
So I didn't know that. That's good information.
That's what if you send that registration card in.
That's why you tell them how big your boat is and how many people you have on it at all times.
Exactly. And it'll let us know exactly what we're looking for.
They say, we went down to that, or you want?
Well, where were you at?
We're at fire extinguishers now.
Okay. I tell you, we're just gonna go with the form here.
Yeah. Cause we're gonna come to that. It's all right. We're gonna get it. We're gonna cover everything.
All right, we've got the E-Perb. What's the next thing we're going to do?
we're gonna talk about
Now we're looking for fire extinguishers.
Fire extinguishers on the vessel.
Okay.
Okay.
Right
So
now, go ahead.
For 26 to 40 feet, you're required to have 2 B1s. Okay, or unless you have a manned engine compartment. Do you normally have somebody that works in your? We haven't looked in there yet.
Done dock side, top side.
Remember now, he's 49.
Wow, it's right here, a B1. And we got 2 B1s and a B2 or a B3 down below. We don't have one in the engine compartment. Y'all need to tell us if we have to. Way we would, I've always figured I'd rather have it top side because you always right there you can take care of anything by lifting the lids rather than you can't do nothing set down in my engine room. Any of the walk-in engine rooms we got them mounted inside on the wall where you can.
On the outside entry of the door, in other words, he
Right.
has access to his engines by 2 open lid compartments in the mid-body of his boat here.
There's no specification for this size vessel. There's no
No
specification
specification
on where they have to be.
Okay.
The only thing is, do you understand the difference between a B1
Oh, yeah.
or say an A, the difference between A, B, or C class of fire
Yeah,
extinguishers?
yeah.
What are the differences?
It's for the different class of fire that you would fight with it. An A being an electrical fire, B would be a fuel fire, and C or A is a paper fire or wood. C is an electrical fire. If you hang on just a second, I want to ask him about that hydrostatic relief.
This is a sign that you need to have visible in the wheelhouse. Discharge of oil that's prohibited. You got to report all injuries under Coast Guard specs. Your legal and illegal ways to dump plastic or trash overboard in the areas of miles from 3 to 12, 12 to 25, and outside 25. And U.S. lake, rivers, and bays and sounds 3 miles from the shore. And warning, no illegal drugs. Well, there's no legal that I know of. This needs to be visible in the wheelhouse.
Take that.
The reason I ask is because anytime, whether you have the device or not, when you're within 3 miles, the discharge has to be secured, which means it has to be turned off and either have a wire tie, a lock, like you did. If you took the handle off, that'd be sufficient, or have tape around it or something where it cannot be used when you're within 3 miles from the beach.
Okay, and to get legal, then we're talking, I'm familiar with holding tanks, because we got one on the big boat.
Yes, sir.
What other type thing is, can you go with a special type commode or head that's gonna give you, it's got a built-in sanitation thing, or what we gotta do there?
No, sir, it's going to be some device in addition to that. To be legal right
Y'all
now,
can give us some literature on it.
yes, sir.
Okay.
It'll have to be a Type 2 or Type 3, and again, just like all the other stuff we've been checking, make sure it's Coast Guard approved and has that approval number.
Right,
I
okay.
don't know what's your plan, but what you could do in here, just to give you an idea, is what you could do in here is you could come into your piping right there behind the toilet,
Right.
and you could actually put a holding tank right up under here. You got plenty of room.
Well, we might can do that. But y'all do have
'cause there's
literature,
no-
we can
Yes, sir,
actually
we-
eyeball.
There's no
Let me look up here,
actual
Carl.
no actual laws or
You can just kind of pull that twist, it'll come out there.
no actual dimensions that tells you how big they have to be.
We got plenty of room under here.
But what you figure is you figure about a gallon per person
Is the power onto this
per
right
day.
now?
So
Pardon? Is the power onto this right
Yeah.
now? Because what we do, your discharge is just right there, right?
Right.
Eric,
I'll go look.
I'm gonna show you what we call this a paper test, and what we do, since you don't have the valve on, to ensure that it's closed, what we do is just take a wad of toilet paper, put it in there, flush it, and make sure it doesn't go over the side.
Button right over your head right there.
Where is it gonna go now that,
Well, it ain't gonna, what's gonna happen now, we're gonna pump one and it ain't gonna go nowhere if you go to the
Just gonna
valve,
stay
which
right
is
here.
clean now, so it ain't gonna hurt, I mean, it's
it's not gonna flood you or anything, it's
No,
all
no, it
basket.
just, you can just lift the lid there if you want to, and we just make sure it don't fill full of water.
Where's your
Okay, what he's done here to secure his overboard discharge for his installed toilet is he removed the handle from the valve. Which, that's fine because it can't be easily turned. If you're gonna leave the handle on, it has to be closed. Anytime you're within 3 miles from the beach, or any time in inlet waters, in the bays or whatever, it has to be secured. And by that, remove the handle, or have the handle in the off position, the shut position, and then you need to take a wire tie, plastic wire tie, a piece of wire or something, and secure it up so it can't be easily moved. Okay, and the way we're going to test this, since he doesn't have a valve, we can't tell if it's open or closed. We're just going to do what we call a paper test. Wad up a piece of paper, drop it in, flush it, and check the discharge to make sure it's not going overboard.
Right, to make sure the valve's working properly.
That's
It's
correct.
It's closed. Okay.
What we got here is we're looking at the waste management plan. What it is you gotta have something posted somewhere on the boat that tells you what to do with your trash. You know, as far as your garbage cans, garbage bags, whatever.
What does it need to read?
It's whatever your normal procedures are. You know, say it should read, no trash will be thrown over the side or discharged over the side of this vessel. All trash should be saved in a certain space or certain spot until we reach port, and at the time we reach port and are docked, trash will be taken to the dumpster at the end of the dock or whatever. You know,
Okay, so it's the captain's responsibility.
The captain's responsibility to come up with that. You know, whatever might be convenient for him.
Okay, I noticed on ours, we've got on the waste management plan on ours, we've got our company name and phone number and our address under a white clear thing that says all waste and garbage must be placed in a trash can with a plastic bag. On each trip, waste and garbage will be unloaded at Raffield Fisheries Dock. It is the captain's responsibility in carrying the waste management plan out, and the captain should sign it, proving that he has read it.
He's read it and he understands what it means.
Now we're on the injury.
Yeah, and then the injury placard, it just tells your crewmen what they need to do. You know, if they have an injury or something, they get hurt while they're on the boat. You know, who they need to notify, and the process for them going about notifying. You know, whoever they need to get a hold of. You know, whether it's the captain or the owner of the boat or whatever it might be. But it's all just real simple stuff. I mean, there's no exact specific wording for any of it, other than I think the injury placard, you know, is a little bit more specific as to what it says. But as far as the garbage placard, it's not specific at all as to what it's going to say. It's just going to tell you what to do with the trash.
Right.
You know, where you're not throwing it over the side.
Right. Okay.
Okay, what we went over was to make sure that he had his navigation rules, and he needs to have an up-to-date copy. There's several different, this is the one issued by the Coast Guard, it's the one we'd recommend, but there's other sources like the Reed's Almanac, which we accept. Then we went over his navigation lights. He has his 2 side lights, and his mast light and stern light, but what he doesn't have for this type vessel is a required red over white. That's an all-round light.
I got it in the locker.
He has it in the locker, but it's not installed. And again, the technical aspects on all those is in this right here. It has to be 1 meter separation. I don't think we saw your garbage. We saw your waste management plan.
Right,
Is our garbage placard down there too?
Yeah, we went over all that just a while ago.
Okay.
Check that.
And your FCC license. I saw you had it in here.
Yeah, just a second.
One thing on this is it's required to be posted in the pilot house. So if you can post it like you have your placards there.
Nothing else, I'll find somewhere to post it on a flat spot. You gotta be careful.
Did you already check that license?
Yeah,
Let me look, make sure
the
everything's
one
on.
there is only for the EPIRB.
Okay. That's ship aircraft rated. Okay, what we check on the FCC license is anything that you have that transmits. Your radios, with the exception of a CB, your EPIRBs, your radar, it should all be listed all on the same license.
I don't have a radar, but I got VHF, Motorola.
Okay, we've got your V8, well, we've got your EPIRB on here. It looks like this one's old, because this is a 156, 158, and you've got the new 406 EPIRB.
Yeah.
So you need to get this updated. You need to have your VHF radio should be on here.
Eugene, your daddy told me this is what you set off when we bought them.
That is,
Okay, well, he said this is.
Wait a minute, let me look at
that
it.
is the VHF FCC license identification number.
What about the EPIRB? See, when we bought them EPIRBs, you
We
put
sent,
right
we
on
sent
there.
all, we got all that.
Well, I
Okay,
thought it
he's
was
got,
all
let's
on
see,
there.
radio, telephone, 150, that's your VHF, and it's just got EPIRB. Okay, everyone I've seen has 406 EPIRB written on it.
Okay.
So you do have EPIRB
We was
on
thinking
there.
that was EPIRB VHF.
It is EPIRB VHF to get on that FCC license.
It is. Both of them are on here.
They just didn't
specify
Right.
the megahertz that it goes out on.
But that came from the state now.
Okay.
That was it.
Just, most of the other ones I've seen, it'll all be single line. It'll have radio, VHF radio. Then it'll have most boats that have the radar. Next line.
There,
So this
there
one
was a
does have
chance.
EPIRB.
there was a chance when we filled it out, we just wrote EPIRB, and then we didn't write the specs on what it was, and instead of them going through a hassle, they just wrote EPIRB that we had one of
Be glad
compliance.
they did that.
But
Be glad they did that.
But we need, for them to really do it right, that you need to check, they need to specifically write what the license is or what
the frequency is
of the
transmits
EPIRB.
on.
Okay.
But be glad they did that, because if you mess up an FCC license application, they don't just send it back to you to get it corrected. They send it back to you and ask you for another $35 to resubmit it.
Okay.
Because it's $35 for each item that you submit one for, each time you submit a application. No matter where you've had you send it in and they just send it back because there was one number wrong. Take your time filling that thing out and fill it out right, because if you don't, it's going to cost you another $35 out of your pocket each time you got to send it in.
Another point you want to make is anytime you add equipment, you want to have your license updated. Even if it's just putting an additional VHF radio, radar, whatever. Okay, so load line certificate doesn't apply. Numbering doesn't apply. Okay, that completes the section 1. Alright, since you operate beyond the boundary line, there's an additional section for you.
No, we gonna operate.
Well, what we consider, if your vessel ever operates beyond 12 miles, which you do, even if it's only 5% of the time, then you're required to have these additional requirements. And a lot of that, it gets real specific as far as the length of the vessel here. Are you still up with us? Okay, 160 doesn't apply.
FCC license, load line certificate, not apply.
Okay, do you have any of your first aid equipment? Do you have a first aid manual or a first aid kit?
Do you do the numbering already?
Yes.
Good,
First
right?
aid kit.
It's just for certificate of number, which doesn't apply because he's documented.
How far is this line you talking about to where we get in a different category? How far are we talking about offshore?
12 miles.
12 miles. I doubt I've ever been offshore 12 miles. I doubt I've ever been offshore over 3 miles.
Okay, see, and that's the reason when we...
When you asked me that while ago, I answered that because
That's the reason we asked that
one
question.
reason why I'm saying that my net is not even gonna fish it outside of 3 miles. Now you're gonna go to one boat. We got one boat down here that the Coast Guard stopped last year. He's gonna work 8 mile. He's gonna work anywhere he wants to go because he's got gear of fishing working that down water.
Okay, if you'd like to change and say that you never go beyond 3 miles, we're here. You invite us aboard. We're taking your word for it.
I'm almost. I would be just saying something that I would have to really sit and think. But I think you're gonna find out if we don't. 3 miles is going to cover us.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm trying to think anywhere that I can be over 3 miles. The sea buoy out here is about 3 miles, and I'll never get outside of that.
No. On example, do you ever transit from here to Panama City?
We do, but we're right down the shoreline.
You go, okay.
Yeah.
All right,
we fish on the coast.
We just on the shore.
That's fine then.
I said that a while ago, and I really wasn't even thinking when we said that, but I don't get out. 3 miles, inside 3 miles cover me.
Okay, we'll just remind you that that there is an additional section for limits on it. And when we leave you this book, if you're going to consider, even if you're just going to do a transit, if you're going to a yard at Tampa or something like that.
If I'm over 3 miles and the Coast Guard stops me, I'm coming under different regulations than where we stopped at.
Change that front section.
Yeah, I just did.
Okay.
What I did is I just initialed for
You got 2 boats basically right now in our fleet.
Hey, man, I'll go ahead.
You're going to film this. So far, if I understand these gentlemen, number 1. Let me cut them. Deer hunters off.
Here they are right here, so there's actually 3.
3. Okay.
3. 2 of them are covered under one rule.
Okay, the bathroom is 1. Commode.
The commode, the toilet is 1, and what it is since you don't operate past 3 miles out, you've got to have the holding tank, and it's the only way you can use it.
The only way I can
Because
use
you
the
have
head.
into the holding tank.
The only way I can use the head is with a holding tank.
With a holding tank. It can never be discharged over the side within 3 miles of the shore.
Okay, the lights.
And then the light, you need the red, the 360-degree red to go over your white light, and it needs to be at least a meter, which is basically 3 feet separation between the red light and the white light. All right, and then the third thing is the bail, the 6-inch bail. It works, but It's got to be a 7.9-inch bale.
So basically an 8-inch.
Yeah.
8.85, that's what I said yesterday. We went away and found out we can buy them Panama for 22, 23 bucks, 9-inch bale.
That's the only things you need to do to
Don't go
get
to
in
that other place I went
with
to,
it.
charged me $109
Yeah.
for a bale, and I went over to Panama Motor Supply and got it for $22.50.
Okay, to let you know too, what we just explained was, what we just went over here was in section 1 of this booklet, because he doesn't operate beyond the boundary
Beyond 3
line.
miles.
All right, if you do operate beyond the boundary line, which is considered 12 miles,
12 miles.
there's an additional section, section 2, with additional requirements that we will check.
Okay, let me ask you one question.
Okay.
I know you told me I can get a 5-gallon bucket for the commode thing and get by with it to do something. What if I keep the handle off it? Do I need to put a padlock on the one we got? I just need to take the swim off.
You need to, the only way you're legal right now is to take it off,
Take the pull it out.
unfortunately.
Okay, until I get a holding tank.
Yes, sir. All right, the other thing is, we got 800 number. On this form we'll give you our number. We're out of Panama City. Anytime you've got a question regarding these regulations, you can call us and ask us. There's also an 800 number which goes to our Marine Safety Office in Mobile, and they will answer your questions also.
Yeah, I called y'all one morning this summer. I found a boat washed up on the hill down there behind the Shell Island. Had 4 or 5 people on it. They was flagging it, and I was busy as I could be. I knew they wasn't in no kind of distress or danger, so I called in and told them they better get somebody.
Switched over into a deep sea tugs, an Army Transport Service. And I worked on the tugs, worked my way up, got my skipper's license, put a couple tours in Vietnam. And one day the tug got caught on fire and took me off the tug and made me a pilot. So I was a pilot in Cam Bay in Vietnam, and then I was a pilot in Korea, ship's pilot, and then in Japan. And then I got fortunate, I got a teaching assignment back at New York State Maritime College for 3 years. I went back in the mornings, I would teach navigation and seamanship. In the afternoons, I'd take college courses. And then in the evenings, I'd work as a dormitory supervisor to pay for all that. And it took me about 12 years. I got a college degree finally. And I got teaching credentials. I like to teach. I like to make things easier for the individuals like myself that came up from the bottom. Some of us went different paths, but we got there. And 13 years ago, I got a call from a friend. He said, there's a pilot's job in Panama. I said, no way I'm going to be able to make it to Panama. They're not going to take me. But I got lucky again. I've been a Panama Canal pilot the last 13 years. Down there, we work 6 weeks on, and then we get 6 weeks off, just like fishermen, right? You got to get 6 on, right? Full time. There's one other period of my life I think I should share with you. I was out of a job for about 2 years, and I went to Alaska. I worked on the draggers up there. And that's where I learned to appreciate where the real hard work is. And I realized that God forbid I ever have to go back in the fishing business, because you guys are the hardest working buggers I've ever seen in my life. I mean to tell you, and it's the most dangerous job. So from there, I've been in Panama. I got a call last year. We've been in the education business, and one of my 6 weeks off, my daughter and I, she graduated from college, and she's got a teaching certificate, and we were tutoring guys to get their licenses. My 6 weeks off, I was helping people get their AV ticket, and I was working at C school, but on the West Coast, and some of the other schools, in Houston, Marine, I worked with them a little bit. And she now runs a navigation school up in Seattle. She's got 2 captains and a couple guys retired working for her up there. And my son, my other son, he's working on the Columbia River. He went to college for a year and said, the hell with this. So we put him on the river. And he's working there now as an assistant captain on one of those stern wheelers, and he's the engineer in the port, because, you know, when they lay him up for the winter, like your boats, you know, there's no job, he's doing something else. Last year, I got a call from Bob Jones from Southeast
vessel safety program was being developed by the Coast Guard and wanted to know if I could help out. And I said, sure, I'll give it a shot. So for the last 9 months, I myself have been refreshing my training and going back to all these different Coast Guard schools and all these things, trying to find a happy medium as to what the subject matter is going to be. Now, the subject of your course today, for the next 2 days, is commercial fishing vessel safety drills. The Coast Guard developed this with primarily the people on the West Coast and Seattle in mind. They gave them a lot of money to do it. We're right now trying to get some money for you guys because somewhere along the line somebody dropped the ball and they didn't share the money. Texas A&M got some money. It seems to be at the schools and the organizations get the money, but doesn't get to the fishermen or the seamen that need it. We're trying to get a tuition voucher system where the government will give you $150 or $200 and then you give it to me or give it to somebody else to get trained. That's down the pipe. But what we're going to do today, before we even get started, I want to promise you one thing. I feel bad about having to charge for this course, Eugene. I really do, because safety is something I'm up on, and I really believe it. So any of your people that come to me to assist in getting your license or your AB tickets or whatever comes down the pipe, I'm going to give you a $100 rebate. In other words, what you pay here basically, except in the materials net, is going to be deducted from that course, so kind of break-even point. So keep that in mind in case you come to Florida Training Systems for a course later on down the road. Second thing we can do is we can come up here for a couple weeks and save you the per diem and travel. 4 or 5 or 6 of you want to get together and work on it for a week or so, and then I can come back at a later date to catch you up when you go take the exam. So we want to work with you on this. On the licensing and Coast Guard rules and regulations, we're pretty up on those now. We've been working with all the Coast Guard offices. Christ, I had to go to Mobile, Jacksonville, Tampa, Key West, Miami, and get approval to talk to you fellas today. I thought they were going to give me a hernia check to see if I was all right there, you know. So today we're going to cover, for the next 2 days, we're going to do the emergency drills and manual. Now before we get started, I want to show you a videotape. Can you hit those 2 lights in the back, somebody, please? This is going to be just a short tape. It will only take about 2 or 3 minutes. I want you to take a look at this tape. This was produced by the North Pacific Fishing.
Nova Scotia, a ship collision, and by happenstance, on one of the boats, an NBC News camera crew and correspondent Lee McCarthy.
The 2 Canadian fishing boats collided in a heavy fog. The 164-foot Cape Beaver struck the 120-foot Margaret Jane amidships. The crew of the smaller wooden vessel moved to abandon ship. But when the steel-hulled Cape Beaver, its engines full astern, backed off, the Margaret Jane quickly began sinking. Some of the crew had time to put on life jackets, but others did not. 2 fishermen wearing life preservers were pulled down by the sinking boat and did not escape. As the fishermen floated in the cold Atlantic, others got into the Margaret Jane's life raft. Crewmen from the Cape Beaver used its lifeboat to pick up some survivors, and in this case, helped one victim to stay afloat. There were 18 men aboard the Margaret Jane. 14 of them were rescued by the Cape Beaver. The other 4 are missing and presumed dead.
The will to survive separates those who make it from those who don't.
Time I just look at that tape, I get a little upset. That took about 32 seconds for that ship to go down. You want to turn the lights back on now, Eugene? What we're going to cover today is some of the things that maybe or 6 days. We've managed to get the Coast Guard approval to do this for 2 days because you call it in safer waters, it's a little bit warmer. That's about the difference in the safety and the type of waters you're in. And so this will be a 2-day safety course. I want to pass out these manuals. Each one of you to keep their manual. This is your manual. I'll go through it. If I have enough manuals for everybody here. Fishing simple, the CPR first aid went into effect. Technically, by law, there should be one man qualified in CPR and first aid on every vessel. And that includes the guys out there who are doing scalloping, the guys who are doing string and everything. A little ridiculous, but that's the way it is. Can you all see this chart here? Let me move it back a little bit. One guy qualified in CPR and or first aid. That's by regulation. I didn't write the regulations, fellas. I'm just a centurion who's going to get his head cut off because I delivered the bad news. In '94, this coming September, they'll have one man on board must be qualified, and you're all going to be qualified to be drill instructors. Okay, you take your manual. It's a very simple process. It's not complicated. Once a month, you get together your crew and you say, hey, you know where the fire extinguisher is? What would you do? It's a what-if situation. It's an information situation. Your boats are small, some of the big, but if you decide to move up and bigger licenses, then you'll be qualified. If you have a 100-ton license, if you have a Coast Guard license, you're not required to take this course and you're already qualified. Once you get your license, you're not qualified. You don't have to take this course. What's funny about it is that the information on the license has nothing to do with first aid, so there's some conflict there. We're working with the Coast Guard to work this out. Now, everybody's got to receive initial shipboard orientation. Every person on board, when he comes aboard, sit down with your manual and go through it with him one time, have him sign that he's received it. God forbid you get some sea lawyer out there who finds out about this, and the next thing you know, he's suing Raphael Fisheries because somebody didn't give him his initial training. There's always a clown in the group. Test equipment, check the condition of safety gear, test EPIRB, and your log entries. We're going to talk all about that here a little bit. The next thing we're going to cover in a little bit here is going to be emergency situations. I'm going to talk a little bit about emergency situations. We're going to talk about 7 steps to survival. Talk about station bills and assignment bills. Now this all sounds like a lot of garbage, but it's really simple if you think about it and just use a little bit of common sense. We're going to talk about the basic types of drills, abandoned ship, fire, and I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible because you guys there's only 2 or 3 or 4 of you on any one boat. You all can't do everything. My God, it can be, one guy would be standing watch on the CO2 bottle all the time. Then we'll take a break for lunch here. We'll talk about the stress signals, a little bit of helicopter evacuation. I got some videotapes, firefighting. Then I'll talk about the EPIRBs. I've got some EPIRBs out there. We're going to go over the EPIRB, what the damn thing is, and how it works. Tomorrow we're going to get into life-saving equipment. I know you don't have to don the survival suits, but I've got a couple of them out there, and I want to show you what they look like in case you ever get on a bigger boat. Everything below latitude 32 doesn't have to have these things, but if you're if you go north of Savannah, you're in trouble because you have to have one on board. Savannah is the cutoff for those survival suits. I've got a couple of those out there we'll go over. Life rafts, we're going to inflate a life raft. I would suggest, before you turn your life raft in for repairs, that you take the crew off that boat and you pull it out on the dock and you pull the cord and inflate the sucker. Number one, you're going to make sure that the guy that services it has to service it now because it's been inflated. Number two, you can take a look at the gear inside and talk about that, what kind of gear is in there, and you can go through it a little bit. So we're going to inflate a life raft for you, and then we're all going to climb in the life raft. I got a big one. I think we can get half of us in there. Then we're going to talk about some equipment training and exercise and some drill planning. And then we're going to let you guys evaluate how well I did. Give me some input. Tell me what I did wrong, what I could do better. We're limited in what we can do. I'd love to be able to light off some handheld flares. But my insurance company won't throw you in a swimming pool. But my insurance company is for each one of you, decide what you guys can get together on this. What are the emergency situations you would have on a vessel? What are they? Think about it. Fire, I'll give you one. Fire. Huh?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, the captain would have to use just good
Yeah,
common sense.
the stern is the best place to go. You gotta take an inventory of your equipment, you gotta take an inventory of your crew. Where's John at? Oh shit, he was sleeping down below. Where is he? Was he the one who went overboard? So you have to pick an abandoned ship station where everybody meets, and we're gonna talk about the different duties of each one of the guys on board. Now, if you flip your pages in your book, on board one of your boats, everybody's got to put a life jacket on, okay? Think about it. I'm not saying you're wrong, Randy. I'm just saying, don't forget now, everybody's going to be on deck with a life jacket on, or we're going to have two guys overboard. All right, so remember, if you're down on deck and there's a man overboard, let's put a life jacket on.
I heard him comment about throwing a ring in the water.
He threw a life ring in the water as a marker.
Well, what happens in our situation, we don't have a water ring, that's all we have to carry.
Well,
Use a marker.
Just use
use
the marker.
Okay.
Okay. All right, Randy, who's after you? Who's the deck commander?
Joe.
Joe? What'd you do now? What's your job?
Look out.
Look at it. And you kept your eye on the guy, right?
Never took
Never took it. Who else is here?
got the life ring ready to throw him in with the line.
Okay. And how about first aid equipment? Somebody got to get some first aid equipment ready? Anybody got to get some, I know, just because we didn't put it down here doesn't mean it goes down here.
Man overboard, you did?
Sure, the guy could be injured, could have hit his head. Huh?
I put that, I assume that'd be on there when he got on board.
Okay.
I think 48, 60, 70 foot boats instead of 400 foot to the,
Yeah.
but okay.
Somebody's got to get some blankets or maybe get ready, first aid. At least have somebody recognize the fact that, hey, okay, we got this ready here. Let's get some blankets or something, because he could be injured. Get the first aid equipment, or if it's in the wheelhouse. Okay? These are the things you got to think about. Okay, now we got our second crew over here. How about you guys? What'd you do with the fire?
Well, starting out, I'm the captain, we sounded the alarm, I
Okay.
sounded the alarm,
All right?
and going over the list of other things that we did, we contacted the Coast Guard to try to, and killed the source of, and we're using a certain boat example that we're offering.
Okay, that's right.
I killed the batteries in case of that. Then we went on down.
Okay. Randy, what was your job? Eugene?
My job was to shut off the air supply and fuel supply and take care of the muster station to account for head count on the vessel.
Okay. If you had any acetylene or oxygen tanks on deck, what would you do with those? Check and make sure they're not near the fire or anything, because they think it might cause an explosion.
Cut them off, throw them over.
Throw it overboard. How about it says on my little example here, maneuver the vessel. Let's think about maneuvering the vessel. Why would I maneuver the vessel in this fire?
Wind ventilation.
Try to keep the wind. Keep the wind. So you want to get the wind.
You up or down, you want to go whatever way
You want to go with the wind.
I'll tell you something I got into here before last, you gotta be careful with a fire on a boat, I never realized it. You get a fire in the engine room, you gotta pretty well kill your motor, because if you don't, then your engine is gonna go full of your flames, and both engines will. You gotta twin screw there, both run away on us.
So that's why we shut the ventilation, shut the engines down, if it's possible, or shut one of them down. You, listen, some of your fire pumps, I don't know, your fire pumps run off your main engine? You gotta be careful not to shut off your pump, too. So it's a catch-22. You got to think, where am I fire at? What's going on here? You got to be very, very careful, and you got to stop. It doesn't take that much longer to stop and rationalize it. But if a guy's got a job to do, he said, Captain, you want to shut the engine down or not? That's your primary responsibility to worry about that, and only that. Another guy's got the fire. Okay, what else did we do here? What'd you do at work?
All right, I assemble the fire extinguishers and assist the fight the fire.
Okay. Who else is a crew member here?
Ronnie.
Ronnie?
Here, broke out the life jackets and assist with the firefighting.
life jackets on. He broke them out.
Yeah, but they didn't break the life raft out.
Didn't break the life raft out, did we? What I say about that life raft, somebody's got to get that life raft ready. All right, okay. All right, how about you guys over here? We got a big crew over here. What you guys do with the flooding situation? Flooding.
Yeah, getting the live.
Hold it down. Hold it down, guys. Come on, we got this ship sinking over here. We got.
Taking on water. I sounded the alarm.
Okay.
We'll, from the vessel, prepare the Mayday. We're not into an abandoned ship mode yet, so radios and whistles and all that would come move to that.
Okay.
So that was the things that I did as captain.
Okay, what did you do?
Okay,
Located.
I was trying to locate where the water was coming in and contain it.
Okay, your damage control. Right. What would you do if water's coming in the bow section, and you've been hitting into heavy seas? You know, one of the six things you could do is you could back your vessel down and back into the seas. And that would keep the water from coming in as fast as if you got a hole up forward.
You mean put it in reverse?
Put it in reverse.
What about putting stern in it and put the knife?
That's what I'm saying. No, no. Okay, put your stern into the seas. All right, what else did you guys do over here for flooding? Anybody? What did you do?
I secured all the doors and bulkheads, shut them all.
Watertight integrity. You gotta maintain watertight integrity. Shut down. You gotta isolate. That doesn't mean you lock some poor bastard down below and not let him out. Okay?
I got emergency pumps ready.
Emergency pumps if we got them.
There you go. Life jacket.
How about if you got deck cargo on board and you're flooding? What would you do with some of that deck gear? Jettison it. Get your vessel a little wide. You want to lighten it up a little bit. If you got heavy deck cargo, throw that stuff overboard. You got acetylene bottles, or you're carrying somebody's automobile, or something. You know, I'm just joking, of course, but throw the heavy deck cargo overboard. Lighten it up a little bit. You might be able to bring the hole where the water's leaking once you determine that. Put ballast or down. You can take on ballast. That's what your job was. Determine where it was coming from. Okay, and our last crew over here, what'd you guys do for abandoned ships?
Sound alarm, muster up crew, ship position, and prepare for Mayday.
Okay, and what was your job?
My job was get food in the water, put on my PFD, and report to the abandoned ship station.
Okay. How about your other crew member there?
I was first aid and personal flotation devices.
Okay. How about you, young fellow? Okay. You got a blank form in your notebook. And this is my example to you. It's not complete. Take your examples, put them in your notebooks, go back to the company and get ready to do this aboard your boat. Make 4 or 5 blanks like I did. Get yourself maybe a plastic sheet. You can post these things in 3 locations on board vessel once you make them up. The main thing too is I would date the bottom of this thing. What was the time and date that you made your emergency station up? And okay, we're just finishing up from lunch in the afternoon. This morning we covered emergency situations, man overboard, firefighting, a little bit of seamanship. We talked about the 7 steps for survival and establishing the station bills. We all developed our own station bill for our training and also for our drill manual. Went over abandoned ship, flooding, and there was a little bit of anchoring. We didn't discuss that very in detail. This afternoon we're going to talk about distress signals, helicopter evacuation, emergency positioning indicators, EPIRBs, and also we're going to go over the different types of distress signals and radio frequencies that is expected of us when we're out on the ocean. That's it. It's a little bitty guy here. The transmitter is in the top portion over here. There are 2 different transmitters in these EPIRBs. 2 separate transmitters. 406 transmits to the satellite. That's the frequency that transmits to the satellite. It bounces off the satellite and it goes to a satellite reception station on the ground, which decodes the frequency and says to everyone else who's reading this who you are. Identifies the vessel. They then in turn go to the regional control center, who transmits that information over to the search and rescue center, which has already determined your position by the EPIRB, and they launch the search and rescue vessel to find you. Because from the EPIRB, they bouncing off the satellite, they got your position. Now, also inside the EPIRB is transmitting 121.5, which is the international distress frequency, radio. And anybody listening in on 121.5 can hear that frequency, that transmission, which is usually the Coast Guard is looking for you, or other search and rescue vessels. If you had a single sideband radio on board your vessel, other than your VHF, you went UHF and went to 121.5, you could pick up that distinctive pecking noise, somebody's in distress on there. Okay? So there's two transmitters in here, all doing the same thing. Now there's a strobe light on top. The strobe light goes 2 to 4 hours. The batteries on the bottom down here, they will, depending on the manufacturer, last 2 to 4 years. But let's go down these categories of these EPIRBs, and we'll take a look at this in a little bit. I got some other information to show you about it.
How are they serviced? Do you send them back to the manufacturer?
Yeah, you could.
We're gonna have all that coming up.
Yeah, it depends. Some manufacturers let you replace your own battery. The main thing for the EPIRB, let's go down to category types, and then we're going to take each individual thing as it comes. I got a sequence here so I don't forget anything. Category 1, 1 to 3 miles, locating accuracy. That means that within 3 miles, they'll be able to find you. Is it self-activated? Yes. The minute this thing pops off with this quick release mechanism here, and she goes, will you release it manually or it's automatically released and starts transmitting? Which can get us in trouble sometimes when we're servicing our boat when it's in a shipyard. We activate our EPIRB and don't tell the Coast Guard. The category 1 must be able to float free and it must be able to float upright. And the signal life is 48 hours. Strobe light is 2 to 4 hours. The actual transmitting for these things is 48 hours. They'll find you within 48 hours. If not, you're a dead duck anyway. FCC accepted, well, they had to run it through the Federal Communications Commission, and U.S. Coast Guard approved. Now, required on fishing vessels. See, except if you don't have no berth and no galley. The category 1, if the fishing vessel goes outside, 3 miles outside the limit. You guys get EPIRB, right? Is it a category 1? I don't know. Let's drop down now and skip over to category 2 and 3 because they're superfluous pieces of equipment. There is a category 2 that's floating around. The category A costs about $225 to $500, but you look on that thing and that only has 121.5 and 243 megahertz. It does not have satellite locating ability. It's strictly for those vessels that are overdue or offshore, and the satellite cannot pick it up. It's only if you're overdue or you're in the water, it'll work strictly on radio frequencies. It doesn't bounce off the satellite. Although there are some satellites that can pick up 121.5, it doesn't have the same 406. Now everything's going to 406. Eventually you won't see anything except the little handheld EPIRB that Litton comes out with that you can put in your pocket, carry with you. But all those EPIRBs are, the rest of these different types of gears and all that, the main thing is category 1 is class A. And you don't have to memorize all this stuff. The main thing with your EPIRB, first thing you got to do is register that bugger. Okay? Send in your registration and your identification number. Do you have a logbook again, fellas? It'll be somewhere in the front cover of that logbook. What's your EPIRB registration number? You could use the front 2 pages of your logbook to record a lot of information you're required to have on that vessel. When you change an EPIRB, you got to register the new registration number. Okay? Register it. That way they know who the hell's transmitting when it's transmitted. Second and most important thing is read your instructions. Okay? Read your instructions. Now these EPIRBs are shipped in an unarmed position. Okay? Mine right now is in the off position. Right here, see that? The pin is over here, but it's in the off position. It's shipped like this. You've got to arm this thing when you get it. You'd be surprised the amount of people who get an EPIRB, mount that sucker, and never arm it. Never arm it. This is the single most important piece of equipment other than your crew. Well, listen, it happens. You're in a hurry. We've got them, they never take them out of the box. It's locked away somewhere in the lazaret. I got an EPIRB. Where is this? Down here.
How does that's no good.
What?
This thing, boat sinks, has it got a device that
Yes, it has.
and releases it?
It's got a hammer on it that will automatically release. It's got an automatic releasing device here. Right in here. This is an automatic release right here. It's a hydrostatic release right here. This thing goes below 4 meters of water. This thing will automatically pop open, release this thing. It's just sitting in this bracket. Yeah. 4 meters, 15 feet. Okay. And this has got to be replaced too sometimes. The bracket, you got to make sure your hydrostatic releases, the knife is replaced in there. There are different types of hydrostatic releases. I got 4 other EPIRBs at home. And this one I bought because it's bigger for display. It also has a lanyard on it for attaching it. See this? It's a lanyard. And you can, it'll string out to about 10 feet. It'll float. You can attach it to the life raft. Do not put this inside the life raft. Don't keep it inside. If you have to launch this thing and you go overboard, don't keep your EPIRB inside your life raft. Your life raft is coated with aluminum reflector on top, like a foil. And it cuts down your range of your EPIRB almost to 1/4. This EPIRB has got to be outside of your life raft, floating. It's freely. So just that falls down one more time real quick. FM radio. And what you want to do is you tune that to 99.5 FM on your radio. If you're listening, country and western. 99.5, okay? 99.5 on the FM radio. Get your radio put on 99. You got a digital radio. All right. Now there's only once every hour that you can test your EPIRB. You can do it every hour. It's from on the hour to 5 minutes after the hour. From 00 to 05. The Coast Guard picks up a signal during that time that disregard it. You can 24 hours a day, but it must be from the hour to 5 minutes after the hour. And you better have your watch set right. Normally, they'll fudge a little on, okay? Because once this thing starts transmitting, it continues to transmit. On the hour to 5 minutes. On 99, what happens is, when you put your EPIRB up on the table here, we'll put it on a chair. I had one last month that had a battery in it. And I'm testing the dickens out of it. I pulled my pin, right? When I arm it, I put it over automatic, and I put the pin back on. It's on automatic, and it's strobing. Okay? See that? It's going to strobe like that. It's an automatic. It's transmitting right now, but it's not transmitting it. All it's doing is transmitting this. It's not. There's no signal inside here. This is a dummy. Okay?
Okay, so we're not.
So technically, I launched my EPIRB and I'm in trouble and it's transmitting. It's an automatic. It will only do this if you release it here. It falls off the stand. I just want to show you what the strobe light looks like. Let's go 2 to 4 hours. Now to test it, what time did I test it, Randy?
An hour and 5 minutes.
Put my radio on what?
99.5.
99.5
FM.
FM.
Junk radio.
Country station.
I take it from automatic and I push it over to test and I gotta hold it there. And what you'll hear on that radio is beep, 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 beep.
Whether there's music playing or not, that'll
It'll override it. I mean, you can't be 35 miles away from it.
Did you tell me that the signal average is 4 to 5 hours, same as the strobe? Or how long is the signal?
Strobe is 2 to 4 hours.
48 hours.
And the battery is 48 for the
Well,
search.
if I send out a strong signal, use up that much battery in 48 hours.
Well, you gotta hit the satellite. Plus, how long has that battery been in there? Most e-perps don't go launching right away. You keep them in there for 2 or 3 years. You'd be surprised how many new vessels launch an e-perp. It's usually months have gone by, it's been sitting. So they're being conservative. That thing could probably go for 5 days if it were brand new. Okay?
Is there a way to check the power of the battery?
The newer ones will have a battery gauge on them. And the newer ones will also have a trickle charger on one where you plug that goddamn thing into the wall and you don't have to keep replacing the battery. Huh? Those batteries are $200 to $300. It's $400 on one of them. But in order to test it, all you have to do, now, for God forbid, you test your refurb, and then guess what people forgot to do? They forgot to arm this son of a bitch again, okay?
It works. And I'll show you how to mount it, arm it, test, how you abandon ship or take it with you, where to change the hydro, and where the number is located. First of all, ACR beacons come in a case. They can be mounted either vertically or horizontally. If you want to mount it horizontally, as long as it's mounted in an area where it will float free. The single biggest problem I just saw in my ship check coming down through Prince William Sound and Southeast was that many of them, of all brands, are mounted in places where they will not float free, where they're covered with gear, with stations or whatever. So selection of where you're going to locate it is very important. Right now we're going to learn how to arm this unit. To arm the ACR unit, it's shipped to you off, and since it's in a case design, you pull the pin, releasing the top. You lift the top off. The unit is sitting in the bracket, making sure the switch is in the arm position as opposed to the arm position. You can then flip the toggle switch on the top of the unit from the off position to the on position. Once the unit is armed, to test the unit, slide it from the arm position to the on position. Within 15 seconds, the strobe will flash. Within 45 seconds, turn it off. Another way to test an ACR is to lift it off the bracket. Within 15 seconds, the strobe will start flashing. Turn it off, place it back into the bracket.
This is ACR.
Leaving the toggle switch in the on position and the switch in the on position, take the top, hooking the top on, bring the cover down over the nylon rod, and push down on the cover and insert the stainless cotter pin, and the unit is ready to sail. To mount this one, RT-161, E-proof, got it upside down here, but it helps itself that way. The E-proof is mounted, as you can see, much like Phillips did. It has the two holes
on each side. This bracket is mounted in a vertical position. You don't lay it, you don't do it in a horizontal, you mount it in a vertical position with the strobe down with the spring mechanism up. So it's mounted in that position on the boat. And obviously, as any of the E-curves, you do it in such a fashion so that when it does float free, there's nothing to keep it from going off the boat. It has a hydrostatic lock, or hydrostatic release, just like all the others. The E-curve is manufactured in the United Kingdom and England. First, I'll go through the mounting of the unit. First of all, I'm going to have to get it out, and it's not being mounted. We need two people, so if somebody could come and pull back on the black assembly spring at the rear, the top of the unit, and you can just turn it loose. Okay, the unit comes virtually armed and ready to operate out of the box. As you can see, we have three buttons here: an on and auto switch, a transmit lamp, and a push-to-touch button. The switch is locked into the auto position and should remain that way unless you want to operate it manually. The test procedure is simply push the test button. At that time, the strobe will start to flash, the transmit lamp will illuminate and stay that way for approximately 10 to 15 seconds. At that time, it will automatically shut down. Okay, should you want to activate the beacon manually, simply grasp the iron retainer pin seal and pull it forward, breaking the seal. Then flip the switch into the on position, and then the unit is activated and transmitted. At the bottom of the E-curve are two contacts. When those become shorted by salt water, it automatically activates the E-curve. Thus, the reason why it's important to never mount it in a horizontal position or upside down with the beacon up. The water can run down here, get into this cover, and short across those 2 points. Changing the release mechanism, which it has to be done every 2 years, can be done on board. Simply remove the locking and retainer screw off of the poly bolt, pull it out, the unit will come out, and the new unit is supplied with a new bolt, a new plastic bolt. Put it back in, being careful when you disassemble it. There's 2 springs located in this position, which if when disassembled, you could lose them when you bring it out. They could go flying, so be careful when you bring it off. The ID number on this unit is located right here. And every card that's your registration card, that's probably the only thing that you won't have to fill out. At least for this unit, that number is on the registration card that you will get. Really, we can't stress how important it is that you don't lose that card. It's part of the manual. You don't lose it because it does have to be finished.
Let's take a break. Yesterday, fire, person overboard, groundings, strandings, floodings, explosions, stability problems, crew injuries, and fuel oil spills. And I'm going to flip through these real quick, but sometimes if you have anything you want to talk about, I want to go through them. Sometimes I miss things. I'm not perfect. The last person was perfect. They hung on a cross. You know, put that bugger up there and said, "Don't you dare be perfect." So
You know why he was perfect, don't you?
why is that?
So we never get married.
Remember your personal survival when you get aboard boat. Get yourself a waterproof bag if you go out for any length of time, and put some things in it that you think are necessary. Now, I know it's not macho. We have a problem with the pilots down in nobody wants to wear them because it's not macho to wear those things. Well, last year we had a guy fell 30 feet down, landed face first on the deck of a pilot boat. He's a 65-year-old man, and he's permanently crippled, and his face is all messed up. But the neat thing was he had one of the survival belts on, and suspenders. They're very lightweight. Now I know the suspenders are not good for you guys because they catch on stuff when you're out there working on deck, just like these life rafts. You lean over and something catches on a hook or a shackle or something, and it could injure you. But you can wear those underneath your shirt. Put a t-shirt on, put the suspenders on, put your regular shirt on over the top of it. They're they're expensive again. Of course, this Marine Safety Association is nothing other than manufacturers making these things, and they don't make them cheap.
You got a set of those suspenders for us to look at?
No, we ordered 10 of them, and they're out of supply. All they are is a very wide suspender with a wide belt, and they will inflate at about 4 to 5 feet below the surface. When you get them down there, boom, they go. I put one on a tugboat one time, just for the heck of it, under glass in the toilet. And the guy goes in there and he's goofing off in the morning, and you can always tell a goof off because 8 o'clock in the morning he immediately has to go to the bathroom. And he actually mounted it on the bulkhead right there in front of the toilet. And when you go in there, you'd be surprised the amount of information people can use. He's got to look at it. He's got to read it. We want to remember the distress calls. There are 3 types of distress calls. Actually, 3 types of radio communication. Security is your general call-up. You can call up on channel 13 or 16 on the VHF and shift to another frequency. It's for ship-to-ship communications, maneuvering. If 2 ships are maneuvering, hey, I'm going to turn right, you go turn left. You use channel 13 and you use security message. It's pan, pan, pan is it your urgency message, and mayday. And that mayday relay, if you're relaying a mayday message from another ship, you make sure you tell the Coast Guard mayday relay, because otherwise they'll think you're in distress, because they may only get half the message. So you preface everything with mayday relay. If you do hear a mayday message, you've got to respond. Your EPIRBs, did you bring one in from the boat? Somebody said they were going to bring one from the boat.
No, I was going to do it, and I didn't.
Another thing about the EPIRB I neglected to tell you yesterday is that light on the top. You got to be careful that don't get water in that strobe light. All the videotapes talked about, hey, you press a button and the strobe light goes on. If the strobe light's not working, the EPIRB's not working. That's not necessarily true. If that light gets wet or moisture gets in the top of that EPIRB, that light will go out, the bulb will go out, but that doesn't mean the EPIRB's not working. So we want to test the EPIRB. When can we test it? On the hour and 5 minutes after. And what's the frequency? 99.5 on your FM radio. I know you guys listen to all that stereo music, Bach and all that other stuff, but shift over from those AM country and western stations and rock and roll, shift over to the FM 99.5, and it'll work. I've done it several times. 2 classes of EPIRBs that we're only concerned about really is category 1 is Class A. These other ones are just throwing money away. And a pocket EPIRB, which is probably Class A or B for your just transmitting on 120, 1.5. Finally, how the EPIRB works, it's activated automatically or manually. As we saw with the tape yesterday, there's some good EPIRBs and there's some good bad EPIRBs out there. The Japanese make some pretty sophisticated EPIRBs. You've got to be a rocket scientist to use some of them and mount them. Alden Electronics and Litton Industries, if you get a chance to go to one of these boat shows, now I went to the Miami Boat Show last month. It's actually for recreational boaters, boy, Christ, they had boats down there, millions and millions of dollars, but there's a safety section, and you can pick up some information there. They'll give you information, they'll send you out information. 6 is a satellite. You want to look for at least one of these aboard your boat if you get one. They're expensive. And then the other part of the transmitter is 121.5. Now that frequency is dedicated, it's called this international distress frequency. And 282.5 I think is the other one now that they're using for international distress. The relay signal from the satellite is decoded. It's related to the Mission Control Center, which there are 2 or 3 in the world, and then your local control centers, which are Miami, Pensacola, Panama City. There's one in Key West, and they'll send the Coast Guard guys out to help you out. And that's any questions so far? Anything I said you didn't understand, or maybe I might have made a mistake, said something you went home and looked it up in the book last night when you were watching TV, was wrong about this. What I want to talk about a little bit this morning before we get into anything else is stability. Now stability is something the naval architects and these, when I went deep sea, it was a 2-day problem. They gave me a two-part question. It took me 2 days to do all the mathematics and bullshit that goes with this stability. And they made it very complicated. You had to do a lot of stability calculations. On most of the Coast Guard exams now, for your licenses and for the 200 and 100-ton license, there are 5 or 7 stability questions. And everybody gets all excited and they all worry about stability. You guys know, you know a lot about stability, you just really don't know that you know as much as you do. So I'm going to talk just a little bit about stability so it's not as intimidating as it gets. We do a cross-section of the boat for stability. In other words, stability means the ability of a vessel to right itself when it's heeled over. She rolls over and she comes back. And the ability of that boat to come back in an upright position is how determine how stable it is. Stability. It can stand up. And what they use mostly there's some reference points we use. The first reference point for this is the keel. And we always label that with a K. The second reference point that they love to fool with here is G. Now G means the center of gravity. All the mass, if you were to take all the forces flying down on this ship, up and down and everything, and you were to pick one point where all the mass and all the weight, primarily weight, were be forced down on that one vessel. This is the center of gravity. Now the center of gravity can only move in 2 directions, up or down, because this is the earth down here. Gravity is always forced going down toward the earth. So if I put a lot of cargo, a lot of fish, way down in this section, where do you think the center of gravity is going to do? Go down a little bit. We're going to shift the center of gravity on a straight line down. That's if the ship is sitting on an even keel. What if I load a lot of cargo up on deck? What do you think the center of gravity is going to shift? It's going to move up. It'll move up to here. Now that's just about as simple as you can make it. Don't worry about anything else. That's what happens to gravity. It moves up or down. Now I'll get into a little bit more about this here in a second. There's another point on our imaginary ship here. What do we got down here at the bottom? We got the keel. This is the imaginary center line. We got G, center of gravity. This is the force that's pushing the vessel down toward the surface of the earth. Now, what happens when you put that vessel in the water? It floats. And that flotation is forcing up on the bottom, making the vessel come up. This is the center of B, which is buoyancy. Very simple. Buoyancy pushes it up, gravity pushes it down. Now, because the vessel's curved and it's got a curvature and it's a vessel and it's floating, there is an imaginary mathematical point that throws everything out of kilter here. They've called it the meta center. M-E-T-A-C-E-N-T-E-R. meta center, and it's labeled M. What's happening is, at the meta center, as the vessel rolls, the buoyancy swings back and forth this way. Now, it'll fluctuate a couple inches mathematically. It'll move around. If you were to look at a vessel and look at the center of buoyancy as it's sitting in the ocean, it'll jerk around into it, but basically it swings on this imaginary mathematical point back and forth. It shifts back and forth. So we got buoyancy pushing us up, which makes us float, and gravity wanting to sink us, pushing us which direction? Down. Two forces working on our vessel. How are we doing so far? Any questions? It's floating, right? What happens is when we tilt this bugger over, okay? Let me get another color here so we can see this. Now I'm going to tilt this bugger over a little bit. I've got to tilt him over. We're going to lean him over. And this is the water line here. Now, see she's tilted over, she's leaning to start, port. Okay, she's leaning over, right? What happens to the keel? Well, let's do the center line. Can you see here okay? Here we still have the same center line, right? Vessel didn't change its shape. This is the keel. Okay? Center of gravity is still in the mass. It didn't change. This mass, this big blob, it doesn't move. It's, you take this vessel out of water, the center of gravity is going to be the same. So the G is right here, center of gravity. The meta center, M, meta center, it's up here. It's a mathematical point up in the, above somewhere. It can be inside the hull, but it's just a mathematical point. It has no location. You couldn't go find it if you went to try to find it. You can calculate. They'll give it to you when they build a vessel. Say, this is a meta center with an empty ship. And then after that, you start doing these fancy calculations that everybody talks about. What happens to the center of buoyancy now? It shifts. It's going to shift. Which direction? It was originally here, B, and it moves over to here. Why? Because here's the surface of the, here's what's touching the water here now. See, here was the water line originally. We put the water line originally in here. Here was the original water line. And we leaned her over. So we changed the water line, didn't we? Now the water line is here and here. This part of the bottom came out, this part went down. The B shifted. It went from B over here to B1, we'll call it. What about the forces of gravity now? How do they work? Down, right? So the center of gravity, the force of gravity is still working in this direction, right? And the force of buoyancy, what's it trying to do? Pushing it up. So it's working in this direction. Now I didn't get them parallel, but these forces work in exact direct opposite of each other. So I'm showing you this because when you get out on your boats, or you get on bigger boats, now you don't have to be a mathematician. You'll be able to figure this out here in a second. We have a point where these two forces mathematically and actually meet is connected right here. Now can we see the twisting motion? What's buoyancy trying to do over here? Push him up. What's gravity trying to do? Bring the whole thing down. Now this mathematical point right here, this is called the Z. GZ. Whenever you see two letters together, that's a distance. If I said KM is 24 feet, I mean from here to here is 24 feet. If I said the GM, what am I talking about? From the center of gravity to the meta center. That's all they're doing is they're labeling everything. But what I'm concerned about here now, let's look at all these lines, is this coupling effect here. Okay? Vessel's trying to push itself back up, gravity's pulling it down, and buoyancy says, no, no, no. I got more of this down in the water, I want to push it back up. The ability of a vessel to right itself. Now it's going to get a little tricky here. It's very easy. You guys are smart. You know what? You'll see what I'm doing here in a minute. What would you think happened if I'm going to do some radical moves here. I'm going to take this G and I'm going to move him down here. I'm going to put some weight way down in the bottom of the ship. New G. Center of gravity's still going down, isn't it? What happens to this distance now? Look at here. The GZ gets longer, doesn't it? So I got a lot more force, a longer GZ, right? Is this longer than this? This is longer than this? Yes. I got more force. So if I put a lot of weight down the bottom of my ship, what kind of roll am I going to get? Back to you, Paul. Bam! Bam! Sucker's rolling like a son of a bitch because there's a lot of force down here. Right? But if I move the G up, I put some deck cargo up here. Now remember, the G can only go up on the center line. Let's move the G up here. Now look at this. This gets a little bit shorter. All of a sudden she starts to take slow rolls. She hangs over there and then she rolls back and she hangs over here. The force is less. What if the G and, let me flip and do another one real quick. This will copy, so I'm going off the top. All right, let's roll our vessel over again. What is this? Okay.
You got laid over now.
That's life jacket.
It's getting touchy. There's a water line.
We need some man.
We're in deep shit. Now, center of gravity is way up here. G, okay? And the center of buoyancy is right here, B. Once they're both, they're perfectly in line. B is pushing up and G is pushing down. She lays over there and she stays there. It's in a neutral buoyancy position. The only thing you got to worry about now is you don't get any water on the edge of the over the deck. Because now you've got forces from the water pushing on the deck. And what's she going to do? Caps right over. That's why you see a lot of ships go with these, a lot of general cargo ships, they got a lot of high freeboard. A lot of area right here. Because if the deck doesn't roll over, theoretically she won't roll over. That's not necessarily the case. Ships be all over the place. It'd be a rough ride, but she won't roll over as long as you keep everything sealed up. Stability is not complicated. It's a lot of it's common sense and working with things. Let's look at three conditions now, one more time. We can forget the meta center because it's, people get, I've seen a type 2 will look exactly like this. The difference is it's made for inshore and it only supports 15 pounds where this one will support 22. If you look at the book that I just handed out there, and open the page up there, the first part of it. Okay, let's see. We'll open up the page number 2 and 3. Type 1 shows a different type of work vest than this one. Type 2 shows a picture of something like this, doesn't it? There are a couple of model differences, different models for the Type 1. Type 1 is made for offshore. It floats you best. Now, Type 1 is the type of vest that will turn you face up in the water in the event you fall over and you're unconscious. That's what's a Type 1. It's guaranteed this vest, this life vest right here will turn you over.
Is that the best one that you could buy today if you were trying?
No, it's not the best one. It's the cheapest Type 1 you can buy. Now, I don't care what kind of work vest you got. I don't care how sophisticated you get. You've got to have so many Type 1s on board for your crew members. One for each crew member plus 25% more or one more. This one right here, anybody look in the book and tell me what kind you think this is? got a zipper on it, got Velcro. What do you think this one?
Type 3.
Type 3. What's it say about a Type 3?
Most helpful.
In calm, good water, was a chance of rescue, generally the most comfortable for continuous wear. Now this is a work vest. It's still a little bulky. But this does not meet the U.S. Coast Guard requirements. If you're going to go offshore, you've got to have so many of these buggers tucked away somewhere. Okay? This will not suffice. Depends on your vessel and what they say you should and should not have for your particular vessel. You've got to check it out with the Coast Guard. I couldn't tell you today what you're required to have. Type 1. Now, somewhere between the Type 1 and the Type 3 is our imaginary Type what? 2. This is a lighter weight. Okay? You can see this one here. It's a sample only. It's a little bit lighter weight, but it's 15 pounds. It'll give a 15-pound buoyancy support. That's the poundage is what they're talking about, not the weight of the life raft. Okay, it's a little bit lighter weight. Now, we do not want to paint these. We don't want to wash them. Gentlemen, these things are flammable. They'll burn. So don't put them in the galley. Don't leave them on top of the engine. If we've got an emergency, we're going to get the life vest out near the life raft, or get them somewhere where the crew's got them, or keep them above the crew bunk or something. Another reason why you don't smoke in bed is not the bedding's going to catch on fire. Some of this plastic crap will catch on fire. Now they're building them now in fire retardant material, but guess what happens then? Lost one. Okay. And the other one here, we got this bugger here. This is kind of a make-all adult type. They call this a Type 5. This thing here is just another type of work vest. It'll keep you afloat. They use these a lot. You'll see these a lot on tugboats have these. The more expensive the light. Now, the Type 5 is what we're going to work with a little bit. I want everybody to take their life vest out. I want you to read up. Each one of you got a life vest in front of you there. What type is this? Type 1. All right, who had this? You guys? Whatever type you got in front of you, I want you to take a look at it. Look it up in the book and read it. Take these booklets and go through them. Don't pay any attention to the pictures. Every one of these life rafts, except for this sample right here, this sample doesn't have the type marked on it. It's a Type 3. And most of them will be marked with what type they are. The reflector tape, you got to make sure you don't put anything on it. You don't want to paint them. In price, we talk prices here. It depends on who you buy them from. The Stearns distributor, Stearns is one of the companies that distributes these things. The guy that distributes these has been pretty good to the fishermen down at Port Campbell area, but they run from $250 to $350 in cost. They're expensive items. The first thing you want to do is, I'm not going to put this one on, I'm going to put this one on, but I want to show you something. If you notice the snap and how they're packed, the snaps are snapped down on each other. You see how they're snapped together? This one here is the same way. Can everyone see this now? If you can't. You see how I'm snapping these? I'm snapping it inward like this. Here's snap. That's how it's stored. And you maybe put your name on the bag if it's your own personal gear. It's got a handle on the back. What you do is, it'll snap and pull out. The survival gear, the suit lays like this. I'm not going to put this one because it's too small for me. I'll put that one on here in a minute. Good, Mike. That's it. I've got a movie we'll be showing here on this too.
I bet they'll keep C-nails off of it.
We had a little girl up in Connecticut when I went through the class up there. She got the survival suit on. And she jumped in there. She jumps into the bag. And I'm looking at this, and all of a sudden current took her, and away she went. And before we could even say anything, she was out in the middle of the stream, and it's a Saturday morning, and she's heading down to sea with the tide. And they took boats, they couldn't get her, and she's happy as a pig in mud floating in a survival suit. An hour and a half later, we got her out of it. An hour and a half later, we got her out of it. And she was dry. Her clothes was all her clothing was dry. Couldn't believe it. Now when we store this, and we're going to go over this again and again and again, when you store a survival suit, you start with your legs right here. And you just fold it forward. Okay? You got me? This fold, there's a reason for this. Fold it up right here. Bring your hand forward. Throw your arms in here like this. You pick her up like this, where your head doesn't flop, and you put her in the bag. It usually takes two guys to do this, put it away. Okay, you want to hold the bag? Come on, hold the bag. And she just slides down in there. One of the reasons why you guys hired me to do this, there are tricks to everything. Now this is the jumbo. This is a big one. Sometimes you have to really yank this sucker. Grab it by both hands, flip her out, and she should be rolled up properly on deck. Look at the size of this thing. Good God. Huh? I had this one in the back.
Where's the motor at?
Now what's good about this guy is we've got a blow-up tube on the jumbo and some of the other ones for inflating the head cushion. But once you get in the water, you blow up your head cushion, and it keeps your head out of the water. There's a whistle on the snap. Okay?
There's a whistle already.
Okay, let me take some stuff out of my pocket so we're going to keep it. And you see how there's no feet in it. You climb in.
don't swim in it.
You don't. You just slide it to the side. You zip it up, there'll be air in it, and you float. You can leave your life jacket on the inside, or you can put a life jacket, probably put a life jacket on the outside. Primarily, I leave a life jacket on the inside, depending on the type of gear. And you see this, it's a thermal blanket. This will keep you warm, and if you keep it up, zipped up, and keep your head out of the water, you've got a lot of air in it. This is an alternative for the guys here in the warmer water. And everybody can have one of these. They're not that expensive. We're not going to try with this thing because they're made of tinfoil, and they're only good for one use. Okay? Well, I'll lay this up here for you to take a look at later. Now, guys, one of the problems with getting into your survival suit is, of course, this is, like I said, a big one. First thing you want to do is you want to kind of sit down on the deck. You can't put these things on standing up. And another thing is you have a hard time getting your legs in. So you get some garbage bags from your wife, and you put a couple garbage bags, one on one foot and one on the other. You keep them inside your therm, right at the top of your bag when you restore it. A couple of these little plastic garbage bags. Then when you open this thing up, you slide your foot in, and it slides right on in there. And you gotta open it up. Sometimes it takes two people. Just kind of wiggle her in, wiggle it in. I haven't had this one on before. Now, this is a Gumby. Remember when you were a kid watching TV? Gumby, all right? Now, the hard part, leave your shoes on. Don't take them off. Keep your feet warm. Make sure it's all the way down. You got to have a place to hold on to. Roll over on your knees and stand up. Okay? Now I got this thing relatively on, and it's a big one. I can get the other one on too. This is. Now you want to take your weak arm. That's the next thing, your weak arm. I'm left-handed, so I put my right arm first. I reach down here and I keep easing it up until I got my right arm on. Okay? Pull that sucker on. Now, you can take this and tighten it a little bit better around your wrist.
twist like this, make it a little tighter, so you at least got a little bit of use of your hand. Now I got my weak arm on. Now I reach back and I grab my other arm and I bring it in. Okay? And again, bring her in tight. Do your elastic. Now, you don't want to zip it up now. You want to get your hat on. Okay? Now, grab your zipper. It seems like it may be straightforward.
It seems like these things take an awful lot of time if you're in a...
You know what the Coast Guard says? You're supposed to be able to get this sumbitch on in 1 minute.
I can tell you what, your ass getting thinking, you do a lot, I'm telling you.
You can do a lot of things. Fire on your tail. Bring your zipper all the way up. Bring your faceplate across your face. I guarantee you're going to be, you're never going to sink. Probably die, you probably lose 10 pounds here from sweating. But that's it.
But that'll float.
Oh, definitely.
Can you put it on in the water?
Oh, no. You never could get this thing on the water.
What about the man that's got the life raft headed?
That's the problem. There's a lot of problems with these things. It's a bitch getting into this thing. It's a bitch getting in and out of the life raft.
You got to put it on in life raft before you got to get that down.
But I'll tell you what, every man I spoke to, and I spoke to about 8 now, who've had to put this sumbitch on, swear by it.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
All right, John, you're taking on water, son. Time.
Plastic bag for your shoes. Sit on the head. Sit on the head. Okay?
What's the flood? What I do flat?
What I want to know is, I want to see somebody walk get the damn raft.
What's that?
I want to see somebody walk in one of them things.
I done got 30.
It's a bitch. You're better off to stay in your survival suit.
That's what I'm.
Come on, John, you're doing good.
Let me say.
30 seconds.
30 seconds.
You got 30 more seconds.
90% of it's done right here. Now you got to pull your head forward, John. There you go. That's it. Now bring your zipper up.
What we got?
All the way up. All the way up. It's not up.
45 seconds.
45 seconds. There you go. That's better.
50
Now
seconds.
reach
50
around
seconds.
with your right hand and grab your pillow.
Where'd it go?
Well, here's an important thing now. You got to keep this thing tucked in here when it's stored, or you'll never be able to get a hold of this thing. Okay? Now you reach around. Now when you're in the water, you can start to blow your head. Don't blow on it. Just
Call for help.
yeah, what do you think? Does it look like gumbo?
Blow the whistle.
That's a big gumbo.
Big Gumby.
That thing hot, man.
He did it in about 1 minute and 20 seconds.
Oh, he was
50 seconds.
Had it.
I got 54
So it's
seconds
not
on
that
mine.
difficult.
Just sit over on the side.
I couldn't. You got to get it out first.
On your ass.
Don't just ask you.
Now here's the thing. You better be in a position to where you can clear the, you don't do this up on the forward section of the bow with bulwark all over, because you're going to walk down the deck with something. You put this thing on right where you're going to get in the water, because that's the next thing you're going to do. Maybe grab a life ring or some other kind of flotation gear in the water, but you get this thing on, then you slide into the water. Don't do it and try to walk through the galley and get yourself a cup of coffee before you go, because it won't work. All right, here we go. Woo! Don't get too carried away here. You're sitting too close down on the zipper there. You should sit on the head. You didn't open the arms up either. Buying books out of the school way too.
Losing time.
There you go. Now make sure you get your foot all the way in there. You got little feet. You cheated. The water's coming down.
Be back, the wind's blowing 40 miles an hour back, and you're going to have to go.
30 seconds.
That's your weak arm. Your left hand, right-handed. There you go. Bring it all the way up over your shoulder. Make sure your zipper's clear there. Everything's lined up.
He's doing good.
How many seconds?
43.
43.
45
Going down
seconds.
quick, that's tripping by the stern.
50 seconds.
Yeah, you go in the water.
Uh-oh, he's gotta go to the bathroom.
Critiquing, guys, tell him what to do here.
1 minute. Grab the bone and zip it up.
All the way.
Hey, at this point, it's every man for himself.
There you go.
He made it,
Now here's the hook.
All be hooked together.
Put it, yeah, snap them together in the front so you're gonna be picked up. Get back to work. All right. Throw your bag down, you don't need it. Spread your arms out. Now sit on the head.
That's what I'm telling you.
Don't get back.
You like it when I talk about it. You contact the Stearns people, and they'll get one for you. I deal with them on, people call me all the time.
Water's coming up.
They're not easy, fellas, and if you have to throw your shoes away to get into it, throw your shoes away. They say keep your shoes on. This is the big
Talking about a lamp right here.
Watch your head. Your right foot isn't all the way in here.
He says, I don't care if I get this zipper put on gone.
You gotta get your right foot. There you go, there you go.
What do you do if you gotta go to the bathroom?
And that means Coast Guard regulations. You out there, hey, you out there floating, son? Hey, don't get on that guy. You don't worry about that.
I'll tell you what, have a storage tank on board to pick you up.
Well, that's why them legs are so big for. You get shit them full.
Randy, you wouldn't have to worry about it too much. You see 2 or 3 of them old big pins about that long. Go around, you use that.
Randy, you probably, before you get in, use some of that to make those legs.
You see, it's not that hard.
He done it within or close to a minute.
2 minutes.
Well, hey, listen.
He ain't through yet.
As far as I'm concerned, a minute to 2 minutes is...
He missed it.
55 seconds.
Come on, you gotta go ahead and rock her down.
Now you got to do that hub. Go find somebody that looks like you.
Can you imagine walking to a bar downtown?
I bet that's by now.
Ready? I sure wouldn't undo that zipper in the water, G.
Unzip that thing.
I didn't get that.
How's it you dance, Rick?
See who produced this? Stearns.
Cold water is a constant threat to the lives of those who go to sea, or who work or play on cold water rivers and lakes. Exposure to cold water can quickly disable someone who lacks adequate shelter. Shelter consists of flotation and thermal protection. The importance of flotation is obvious. You won't survive if you can't breathe. Thermal protection is also crucial, and staying warm depends upon staying dry. Your body loses heat up to 25 times faster in water than in air of the same temperature. That means attempting to stay dry is the first rule of survival on cold water. Don't get into the water if you can avoid it. If you have to get into the water, get out as soon as you can. If you can't get all the way out, get as much of your body out as possible, especially the critical heat loss areas, the head, neck, armpits, sides, and groin. In terms of heat loss, there is no circumstance in which you are better off in cold water than in air, even if you're exposed to wind and spray.
Your clothing represents a vital form of shelter. You need layers of warm clothing, even if you'll be wearing an immersion suit. And fabrics like wool or polypropylene are far superior to cotton because they don't absorb water. Wear a watch cap to protect your head. Your head is the source of 50 to 70% of your body's heat loss. If you have to enter the water without an immersion suit, the initial cold shock could be disabling or even fatal. Extra clothing and a waterproof outer layer like a work suit or foul weather gear will markedly reduce this shock effect. Extra clothing will prolong your survival time by reducing heat loss and it won't weigh you down. In fact, air trapped between the layers of clothing will help keep you afloat if you assume a relaxed back-floating position with your feet up. Only immersion suits provide sufficient protection for extended survival in cold water, but they're much too bulky to work in. They might best be called abandoned ship suits. They are by far the best wearable abandoned ship devices on the market, but they don't fill the role of providing everyday flotation. For that, you need something else. If you fall in accidentally, your chances depend on two things: how fast your crewmates can turn the boat around and pick you up, and whether or not you are wearing flotation when the accident occurs. Without flotation in extremely cold water, your ability to tread water or swim is probably measured in minutes. If you're unconscious or injured and unable to help yourself, your survival time is obviously even less. Unfortunately, many boaters and seamen are reluctant to wear personal flotation devices, or PFDs. That's Coast Guard jargon for what you and I call life jackets. No one ever thinks the accident is going to happen to him. Man overboard and abandoned ship emergencies can and do occur, however. And to give yourself a fighting chance of survival, you need two pieces of gear. You need an effective abandoned ship device, preferably an emergency, and you need some form of everyday flotation that you're willing to wear all the time. This Type 1 PFD is designed to turn you from a...
It's also the quick release line. It has a limit. You pull it out so far. And it sits on a platform like this right here. Now, this is my little jury rig. Here's your hydrostatic release. And a lot of people have been making a lot of mistakes on this to the point where I decided to make a little training aid. Hopefully I'll make a bigger one. But the plastic loop, this is the bottom of the hydrostatic release. It's shackled to the cradle or to the deck. All right? We'll shackle that right here. Right through here. And just shackle that to the deck. Follow me on this one now, because it sometimes it's a little tenuous, all right? Then the hydrostatic release comes up, and you use a pelican hook on those cases. I got a little elastic on here. And we'll slide this down. Okay? Now, this holds the life raft in place. You could shackle it if you wanted to, but then you'd have to undo the shackle to take the life raft off, wouldn't you? When I wanted to take it off, but most of the time they like to use a pelican hook or a quick release hook on it. So you can take the life raft off now, throw it over the side yourself. What if the vessel sinks? You got to have an automatic stroke. Okay? This shackle is attached to the sea painter. Okay? It's attached to this red line here, and it's shackled back to here. I'll show you what happens. What I did is the sea painter attached to the life raft, right? It's attached to this shackle, and this red line here is our what they call the weak link. It's just a terminology, it's a line. Now, first of all, let's say I release my life raft here from the cradle myself manually. It's still attached to the hydrostatic release, isn't it? Isn't it still attached here? Okay. Shackle back in place.
You ever put it in there?
I did put it in there.
I hope you did. Yeah.
Hey, if you did have it in there, I want to find out how you done it.
We're going to put it back now. We put it back through the nylon line here. You don't attach it to the shackle. We want to be able to quick release it. Okay? So the life raft's in place and the whole ship goes down. The whole ship. I'll pass this around you. I'll sit it out here so you can look at it. It gets down to about 4 meters. This pin will release. It'll cut this line right here. Theoretically, in other words, it's doing is releasing it. It cuts this right here. Okay, and what it did is, if it didn't cut that, still, this is cut right here. The shackle and these two are still attached, aren't they? If I cut this line here, the shackle and the painter are still attached. Because then when it gets down so far, maybe 4 or 5 or 6 more meters, this will part.
From just the pull?
Just to pull the weight of the life raft.
Now, the reason for that is to keep it from,
being towed under. Okay? The purpose of your hydrostatic release is to release the life raft off the cradle, not to separate it from the ship. The hydrostatic release releases it from the cradle. There's 2 ways to release it. One which is what? Manually. Okay? By hand. Or the hydrostatic release will cut this line right here and release the life raft and it'll float up. When it gets so deep, then the red line will break.
boom!
We did this last.
Did you get that on tape?
I got it on tape.
Why you should service your life raft?
This ought to be a lesson.
Well, that's right. You never know. You never know.
There's a last tip for what's going on in your boat.
Help me take the equipment out of here. That's where this room is. Right. Can you imagine what it's like to be trapped in that sucker for 2 days?
Yeah, I thought of that. You know what you need to do when you're in? Every now and then you jump overboard.